All right, welcome to the video for game 1 from PT7. So 7.1. This is a relatively straightforward linear game where they give us 7 variables, and they're cassette tapes, but that doesn't really matter, or they're broadcast tapes, but that doesn't really matter. There's 7 variables, G, H, L, O, P, S, and then one news tape, which we'll just call N. And I've written those up here, as you should do as well. And I just also went ahead and did the setup ahead of time, so just the basic outline of the setup, the skeleton. 1 through 7, spaces. And now we need to go over here and put our rules in and see which of those rules we can put onto our setup and try to make some deductions and take it from there. All right, it says L must be played immediately before O. Uh, so Actually, let me go back 1 second. It says, I just want to highlight one thing in the scenario. It says, in the scenario, which is the little paragraph before the rules describing the game, we don't want to take anything for granted. So I want to point out that it does say each tape is to be assigned to a different time slot, and no tape is longer than any other tape. So the first part of that sentence is what's really important. Each tape is going to be assigned to its own time slot. So there are no sharing of time slots. We can't take 2 of these tapes and put it in one, or 3 of them and put it in 4. Each tape gets its own time slot, and because there are 7 tapes and there are 7 time slots, that means that each time slot is also going to get exactly 1 tape. So this is a one-to-one linear game where each variable is going to get its own slot and each slot is going to get its own variable. Uh, because not all games will be like that, and so you always do need to pay attention to that kind of stuff. All right, that's that aside. Let's go to the rules. So it says the first rule says L must be played immediately before O. This is a block, and hopefully we know how to write this. L must be played immediately before O, so it's going to look like this, and we need to put a box around it. So let's do that. Okay, that's the first rule. The news tape, the next rule says the news tape must be played at some time after L. Okay, so the news tape is going to come after L. So in our diagram, the way we've set it up, L is going to be, after is going to be to the right of. So we want to say that the news tape is going to be to the right of L. That's what it means to say that it comes after. And the last rule says that there must be exactly 2 time slots between G and P, regardless of whether G comes before P or whether P comes before G. So the first thing we want to make sure we get right is the spaces. It says exactly 2 time slots between. Okay, so there are 2 time slots between G and P, which means, we would take one of them and they would go there, and then we would need 2 time slots to be between them. So we'd be like 1, 2, and then we'll take the other one of G or P, whichever one didn't come first. Okay, so this is going to be a block. So because there's no uncertainty about how many spaces there are going to be in between. There's going to be 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Thin that out slightly. Okay, and that's that rule. Now you'll notice we don't know which one's going to come first, G or P, but we just know that there's going to be 2 time slots in between. And at first, a lot of times people get confused between when they say 2 time slots between, or if they say that, for example, they could have said P will come 2 time slots after G. If they had said P would come 2 time slots after G, I'll just draw that right here, just for an example. That would have been G, and then 1 time slot, and then P. So like this, right? This would be what the rule would be if they had said P comes 2 time slots after G, because we'd be like, okay, here's 1 time slot, here's the second time slot, and that's where P is going to go. But in this case, in the actual game, I'm going to get rid of that. In this case, we have this situation because they don't just say that that one of these variables comes 2 time slots after the other one, they say that there are actually 2 time slots between them. And that difference in language is what is the key to recognizing the meaning of the rule. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. If it's not clear, you probably want to make a note somewhere and make sure that the next time that you have a chance to ask, you should ask more about that and do some more practice problems on that. All right, so let's not waste too much time here talking about that issue. Let's go to the, let's see if we can make any deductions. Actually, I was going to say let's go to the questions, but that would definitely not be right. We want to see if we can make some deductions. In a linear game, as usual, one of the key kinds of deductions we need to make is we need to do not loss. Now, I'm looking at the LO block, and I'm thinking, well, I could, write down a couple not loss from that. But when I look at the rule underneath the LO block, okay, when I look at this rule, then I'm thinking that actually I can combine this rule with this block. And this is a very common combination. This rule combined with this rule is very common, where one of the members of the sequencing rule, one of the members of this rule, is actually a part of this block. Okay? And when that happens, the result is also very important to get to. And what it means is, so let's say we combine these two rules, and they will give us, when we combine them, they will lead us to an outcome that looks like this. We would take, I can actually just copy it here. Let's see. I can replicate this and move it over here. And now we know that that is going to come before, should make that bigger, sorry. I want to make sure that you can see it. So, and then that's going to come before n. Okay? So this is actually the combination of these two rules. The LO block is going to come before the n. Now some people might say, well, this rule didn't say that n was going to come after O, it just said n was going to come after L. But because this is a block, all right, there's no way that I could put the n in between L and O, because L and O are right next to each other. So that it's like the n has to come after the L, but if it's going to come after the L, since the O is going to go right after the L, then the n is going to have to go after the O as well. All right, and that, when you hear it and you see it and you think about it, I'm sure that it makes a lot of sense and it's very simple. But this test really does take a lot of very simple things, and it makes the thing kind of complicated by putting a lot of simple things together. Okay, so this is a key step. Getting to this over here is a key step that you don't want to underestimate in terms of its importance, and you don't want to just assume that, oh yeah, of course I'm going to get that when it shows up on the test. Pay attention, make sure that it makes sense to you, and then in other games when you have a chance to do that, make sure you do it and make sure you notice that you've done it, so that you don't miss it on the real test because you've paid enough attention to it during your practice. All right, so let us now think about this block. So actually, let's do the not laws for this, okay? For this combined rule. So L has two people to the right, so that means L has to have two not laws, or two places where it cannot go, on the right side of the board. So we need to leave room, in other words, for O and N, right? So L should have two not laws here. And the same deal for the N, but on the other side of the board, right? N has at least two people, or at least two tapes before it, okay? So that means that on the left side of it, so that means that there has to be two not laws for N on the left side of the board. So let's do that. And then the O, and I'm sure some of you guys are ahead of me on this, the O cannot go first because it has to have the L before it, and it cannot go seventh because it has to have the N after it, right? Okay, so that's a straightforward application of this rule to get these not laws, right? What about the GP rule? It says, because we don't know which one of these guys is going to come first, so it's not like we know that it's going to be G blank blank P, right? In which case we would know, like if it was going to be G blank blank P, then we would know that there had to be three spaces after the G, and we could put three not laws down for G under 5, 6, and 7. And we could put by the same token we would put not laws under P under 1, 2, and 3 for P, right? But we don't know what order they're going to come in, and that's what makes it hard for us to do any of the not laws for this, because the G could be in the front, in which case it could go in all the early slots but not the later slots, or the G could be in the back, in which case it could go in all the later slots but not in the early slots. So that's the difficulty with getting the not laws from an indeterminate block, which is what this is. It's indeterminate because we don't know whether G or P is going to come first. Okay, so this may be as far as we can get in the setup. Now, of course, when they tell us, when we straighten out this indeterminate block, once they tell us something about where the G goes, or where the P goes, or which one comes first, then there will be a lot more to do with that block. All right. Let me just say, so this might be the end of your setup.